Hey folks, just wanted to kind of give a little bit of an update here about the disc golf channel, as there has definitely been a very huge lack of content lately, and I felt that I owed you folks a little bit of an explanation about why that's the case, and then kind of what is going to be happening going forward. So essentially, why the channel kind of went dormant, I guess you could say, at the end of last year, the end of 2024, is because I did go out of the country for almost 40 days working on the Counter-Strike 2 major. So for those of you who are esports savvy, you may already kind of understand what this is, but for those of you who aren't, I work in the esports world as a broadcaster, as a commentator, as kind of a panelist on, the type of desk that you might see like during a halftime show or, something along those lines in traditional sports. And, I went to go work what is the equivalent of a major in disc golf for Counter-Strike 2, which is one of the esports titles that are very popular out there. And, with disc golf, we have 4 majors a year now. In Counter-Strike, there's 2 majors a year. There's a mid-season major and then an end-of-season major. And so I was working on the end-of-season major, which pretty much meant that I was away from home for, I think, like the entirety of November for the most part, and then kind of the first half of December. So that obviously took me away from the channel as I was really preparing for that event, then traveling over to that event, and then working on that event. As it was a long event, right? Because you had all the qualifiers to actually qualify for the major, and then you had the major itself, which is a multi-stage event. You basically start out with like 50-something teams in the qualification process. You kind of narrow that down to 32 teams for the major, and then you whittle that down to 16. Then you whittle that down to 8 teams for the playoffs, and then you go through it. And so it's a very long process, and it was kind of a dream gig for me. In the esports side of things, especially since, on the disc golf side, I really wanted to become a broadcaster in disc golf to kind of bring those esports skills and experience over to disc golf. And I obviously have done some work as a broadcaster in disc golf. In 2022, I did post-produced coverage for Gatekeeper Media for the MPO Chase card for the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I did some live stuff for the Disc Golf Network in the Disc Golf Pro Tour when it came to hosting that Tournament Central show, as well as a couple other things that I did for them. Some other content I did that was, kind of post-produced content that was on the Disc Golf Network if you had a subscription. But obviously last year there was all the layoffs and stuff that happened. And while I wasn't technically a layoff because I wasn't an employee, I did have some spots I was going to be doing for Tournament Central for the 2024 season. I think I did one, but I had a few more that were in the pipeline, and those ultimately wound up getting canceled whenever all the layoffs kind of started to happen. And so my ability to work as a broadcaster in a disc golf space has really kind of plummeted. I don't know if that'll ever happen again, as that was kind of really the main thing that I was striving for, but we'll see what happens going forward. But at the least, broadcasting in esports is kind of my main gig. I have worked part-time as an EMT as well. But anyway, that all just comes back to say that that's why I was gone for pretty much all of November and then half of December. Then December rolls around. As soon as I get back home from Romania, I catch like some type of stomach flu. That puts me out. Then we have the holidays of Christmas and New Year's. And then by that point, we're kind of in early January, and I still haven't done any content yet. And then from there, really the main reasons why I didn't do any content, throughout the course of January was, again, multifaceted. Part of it was that the weather just wasn't really playing nice with to be like lots of rain. Then it got super cold. We had a snowstorm that dropped like 9 inches of snow. It was like a record-setting snowstorm for my area that we hadn't seen in over 100 years. So that was kind of pretty crazy stuff with the weather kind of making things difficult. And then on top of that, really 2 things happened. One, I've really been struggling just playing and enjoying disc golf lately. Like my backhand right now is just a sprinkler system. I have no accuracy. I have no power. For the first time, I've gotten worse at the game. Throughout my time on this channel and throughout my time playing disc golf, I've always kind of steadily gotten better. Then maybe I'll hit a plateau and stay on that plateau for a while, but eventually I break through. But I've never gotten worse. And for now, my backhand is literally unrecognizable at this point, and that's really kind of frustrated me and made things tough. That's kind of a silly excuse though. Like I can still put out content and that's not really the main reason. But the other main thing is that I also did have to go through a very difficult experience with my dog. You've seen the dog on the channel perhaps in some of my videos. His name was Roku. He was like a black lab border collie mix, and we had him for over 10 years. It was my first pet as an adult, and my first pet as like a primary caregiver. And then it was my fiance Tracy's first pet ever. She never had a pet growing up. And, you know, there's kind of different viewpoints on pets depending on who you are. You know, some people don't have pets, don't really care much for animals. To them, it's not a big deal. Some people maybe do have pets, but aren't as crazy attached to them as other people are. And then there's other people like me who really do see pets as part of the family, you know, and they really are a big part of the family. And, you know, Roku, our dog, was certainly that. You know, he was a big part of our family. You know, I saw him pretty much every day, you know, while I was working from home on different esports stuff. And even when I was working on the ambulance, I'd obviously see him when I got back. So, you know, pretty much saw him every day, except for when I traveled for esports stuff or like the occasional like little mini trip somewhere or something like that. But for the most part, he was a daily part of my life, and the same for Tracy. And, you know, he was just an incredible dog. And what happened is in January, something kind of happened during a routine vet visit that kind of made the vets a little bit scared that he might have some type of cancer. And he wasn't showing any symptoms or anything like that yet. And so, you know, they were not trying to, you know, scare us, you know, just yet, but, you know, they let us know it's a possibility. And so we went through the process of, you know, doing labs and imaging and testing to try to see if this was indeed the case. And ultimately, to make a long story short, we had kind of hit a point where it was like a 50-50 chance that it could be a growth, or it could just be like something kind of clogging up one of his ducts in like his digestive system, and that maybe we could just flush it out and it would wind up being nothing. But on February 3rd, they did that procedure, and while they were doing it, they did detect that there were indeed a couple of tumors in it near his digestive tract that were indeed cancerous. And at that point, you know, surgery wasn't really a good option because he was an older dog. He was over 10 years old at this point. And the type of tumor that it was, it's really hard to get like clean margins and like really completely remove them and cut them out. And if you just leave like a little bit behind, it can obviously just grow right back with a vengeance. And then putting our dog through chemotherapy and radiation was just not something we wanted to do. We didn't want to see our dog suffer or have a diminished quality of life or, you know, anything along those lines. And so ultimately, for the first time ever in my life, I had to make one of the hardest choices ever, which was to put our dog down. And so we had to do that on February 3rd. And so between the build up to that moment of distress and the sadness of knowing that we could possibly lose him, to the actual reality of having to go through that process and all that, really also just kind of took me away from wanting to really do anything as far as content goes. And I tried playing disc golf a couple of times just to kind of help get my mind off of it, and then I wound up just getting even more frustrated and angry because I was already upset and in a bad mental state because of the dog situation. Then I was playing like trash, and like it just wasn't a good combo, and there was just no way I was going to be able to really get out any type of quality content at that point. Sorry, this whole dog thing has been incredibly difficult. So that's really kind of where we're at. Also, worth noting that I do leave on the day after I'm putting this video out. I will be leaving to go back to work another Counter-Strike 2 broadcast gig. Not a major, but still a pretty big tournament on the circuit. And so that will have me gone for the majority of February. But I think that my month of March is going to be a little bit more wide open. I don't think I'm going to be working any esports gigs in March, or if I do, I should still have some time to put some content out. So I'm hoping by March I'll be able to get somewhat back on a routine of getting at least some content out. But yeah, I just didn't want to leave you folks hanging. I know that, you know, there has been a pretty decent amount of subscribers on the channel for a while. I know that I haven't really been putting out content as consistently as I used to. And, you know, part of it, I have legitimate reasons, I think, for not having to. But there has just been times where I just, you know, have kind of took my eye off the ball, I guess you could say. But I felt like I owed you some type of update, some type of kind of just letting you know what was going on. And so here it is. And again, I'm about to be back on the road for esports stuff through a lot of this month of February, but I'm hoping March I can come back and start doing some stuff. And we'll leave it at that. And again, thanks so much for those of you who do support this channel, who have been around for a while. And hopefully you'll see some content coming soon. Thanks.